NCO, Backbone of the U.S. military. You all need to know that only the enlisted can save the republic from the democracy. So if you know an NCO, somebody that's in the military, if they're enlisted, could you send this video to them? And if you've never watched my videos and that was sent to you, hey, right, you guys have all sorts of power that needs to be used. You need to file some charges by the book. Now, I'm a veteran. I'm going to try this from the outside, but the same thing to try to get a court-martial. Because the courts that we see, right, in the civilian world, they have absolutely nothing to do with the Constitution. They're either ecclesiastic courts or they're courts run by Esquires, which are actually crown agents, right? So, we've been invaded by Britain, basically. But if you're in the military, well, you can file charges, right? And that's what we're going to look at. We'll go look at the court-martial manual for a little bit and the UCMJ for a little bit. And I'll show you where things are written. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to show you where it's written, right? But, you have to put the paper in. So basically, you file charges with your commander, swear to them, and, well, now we can have a court-martial. Up until then, we couldn't have one. I have no idea what your commander's going to say when you try to do this, but he may thank you. Because I don't think they can do it, right? They're officers. We're enlisted. We have a different role to play than they do. And as an NCO, you're the backbone of the U.S. military, so just go do it. You put up with all that shit in Afghanistan and every place else. This is a fucking piece of cake. Just walk into your commander's office and say you want to file charges. And hand them to him. That's the part we're going to talk about, right? I'll send you fully prepared. So, and again, if you do this, hey, your country will thank you, because this is the only way for the republic to be safe in the democracy. Now, the democracy is nowhere in the Constitution. All that's written into the Constitution that's guaranteed is a Republican form of government. Well, we ain't got one right now because a Republican form of government would be appointed or elected officers enforcing written law. That isn't what they're doing, right? We go to the court and they have the courts, they call it judge-made law. Whatever they want to do, right? That's a democracy. Whatever 51% of the people want is what rules. And so the democracy is the separate, like a private jurisdiction in the republic. And we've been shanghaied and put into the democracy out here in the real world. But in the military, well, you're in the military and you're under a different form of law. And you're under the military law. Now, this kind of blows people away, but you just think about it just a second, right? That since 1861, or maybe it was 1863, the United States has been under martial law. Lincoln declared, well, let's go look at it real quick. Hang on just a second here. Yeah, Proclamation 104, suspending the writ of habeas corpus throughout the United States, September 15th, 1863. Well, that's never been rescinded, right? And if you were to suspend the writ of habeas corpus throughout the United States, then you've just suspended the Constitution throughout the United States, because if you violate one part of the law, you violated the whole thing. And this is all it took to put us under martial law during the Civil War, and it's never been rescinded. And, all this stuff is covered by military law. We'll look at it in a second. I'm just saying that's what happened, and that's the United States, but that's really not what the democracy is anyways. The democracy is the United States of America. So in the United States, under martial law, the military is in charge. You'd have a military government, and all veterans would be part of that government. We'd be like the eyes and the ears of the commanders out in the districts to make sure that the contract judges and so forth that were contracted to run all the different organizations or agencies of the wartime government are doing their job properly. But instead of doing that, we've let these agencies become the boss, and they did that by putting us in a democracy. It's kind of confusing, but it was really quite easy to do. All I got to do is put a couple errors in your records, and if you don't change them, well, in the court of record, they look at the record and says, well, this is what the record says. And if it says you're in the United States of America, then so be it. But that really isn't the basis of this video. I'm just saying that goes on and on and on what's happening, right? And the only way to end this fucking thing called the democracy and go back to the Republican form of government, is for the United States jurisdiction, which is military, to have a court-martial. And you do that by filing charges, and there's a way to do it. So you can do it by the book, and you can say, well, it says right here, sir, I can do it. That's the thing that they can't get past, and but truly it's the thing that they love, because you can show them where it says it by the book, then they have to do it. But until you show it to them, they can say, well, I didn't even know that existed. Didn't know it was there. Never saw it before. No. Well, as soon as you show it to them, right, you relieve them of their deniability. So that's what we need to do, is relieve people of their deniability. And your country will thank you. And so, anyways, hey, it's Sunday. Today's September 5th, 2021. And I am Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, U.S. Army veteran. Back from the 80s type veteran. You can call me Rob Ryder. And my email address is courtofrecord@aol.com. COURTOFRECORD@AOL.com. And my phone number, 616-712-6179. So if you're an NCO that wants to file charges after you watch this video, contact me. And we'll figure out the words to put on paper, and you walk in your commander's office and see what the man has to say. All right, come back and tell me. I'll put it on the air, and we'll either it worked and we'll do it again, or we'll find out what we need to do and fix it. But we're going to train ourselves to the answer, right? Because we're the only ones that can do it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay, hang on a second. So this video is really just a lot of background information I'm hopefully telling to people who have never heard me talk before, right? People from the military. And so bear with me, brothers and sisters. I know that you are hard to impress, and you've been lied to a lot. It's a fucking bad day in America. But there is an answer, right? So here recently, I did a video on, these are on my YouTube site, which is Rob Ryder with 3 B's, ROBBBRYDER. General Berger, Court-Martial Joe Biden. If you were to watch that video, you would see that I'm showing the text of the oath that Joe Biden should have taken, and we're going to listen to the oath words that he did take. And then we can say, well, that's not the same. So then that would mean that he did not qualify for the office of President of the United States. And if he did not qualify for the office of President of the United States, then he cannot be the Commander-in-Chief. Yeah, that's the office he's claiming, and under the UCMJ, that would be called a false appointment. Right? So you could file with your commander a charge against, we'll look at the exact number it is, but against Joe Biden, whatever the hell his real name is, right? Got to go this stuff proper, do it by the book. Right? That he did not qualify, and that he's violating this particular section of the UCMJ. And put it in, and if the officer will sign it, well then, go grab a chair and watch what happens. It should be a pretty interesting time after that. Right? I mean, that's the one thing you need an officer for, is you need his frickin' signature. You can't get shit done in the military unless you get an officer to sign the damn paper. Right? They're acting like your agent. You may want something done, but your agent has to agree. And, they'll give you all sorts of stuff in the military. You sign your name and get an officer to sign their name, well, they'll give you a tank. Right? You're responsible for it. It's all yours, brother. Right? You better come back with every bolt and nut, but at the end of the day, they'll give it to you. So anyways, that video there is very good to watch. And then this one about Esquires conspiracy to defraud the United States. This is what's happening. Right? Our country has been taken over by Esquires, which are agents of the Crown for the United States of America, which is Crown property. It's not the Republic, United States. It's somehow it's just tied to the British government through the Bill of Rights. All bills are going to courts of chancery. So, they say Bill of Rights. That went into court of chancery someplace. And the court I went into, the court of chancery, is in England, which is part of the government. Right? They don't have a separation of church and state in England. The state is the church. So, it's not necessarily a Christian church. Right? It's doing things by Talmudic law. So, okay, hang on. One last thing. And while you're watching, watch this one here. Place of birth is not a hospital. And I'll show you, what your certificate of live birth looks like and what it asks for if you want to get a passport. You're supposed to bring in your birth certificate. But the thing you have says certificate of live birth. And when you look at what the one requires compared to what you have, your document doesn't have the information required to get a U.S. passport. So instead, they give you a passport for the United States of America. Right? Boom. Put yourself in the wrong jurisdiction. Just like that. Right? You volunteered to go to that jurisdiction. So, not only did Joe Biden not take the proper oath, but if you go to the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, where it says, right now, this is a .gov, Congress.gov, and Congress.gov says this Constitution is called the Constitution of the United States. Don't let somebody tell you this is the Constitution of the United States of America. No, this is the Constitution of the United States for the United States of America, because these two jurisdictions existed, and they're, one is inside the other. It's just the democracy has now become the size of the entire republic because it's basically Shanghaied everybody. But in the Constitution, it says that the senators and representatives, before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office of public trust under the United States. Well, there you go. Now, what this doesn't tell you is that, right after they got the Constitution done, they started writing laws, and they put them in these things called the statutes at large. And the very first law passed after the ratification of this document called the Constitution of the United States is known as 1 Stat, STAT 23. We'll look at it here in a little bit, but that's the nomenclature for the first law, within which it says this is the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. And it tells the words. Right? Well, nobody's taken that oath. Right? It's I state your name, do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States. Period. But that isn't the oath they take. And I'll prove it to you. Right? So where's the proof? Ratlusky? I'll show you. Let me prove it to you. I just got to remember where I got it at. Here we go. So if we were to go look at the congressional record, which you can pull up online, right? Thursday, January 28, 2021, House of Representatives, and you were to cruise down this thing a little bit, you would see that at some point in the day, after an adjournment, where we're done working for the day, they're going to pretend that they're putting this oath of office for the members into the record. And the oath that they're going to say they put in, first of all, says the oath of office required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, and as provided by this other section, to be administered by members, 2 members, But this is talking about 2 different oaths. The oath of office required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, right? That's one oath. And as provided by Section 2 of an act is the other oath. And this here is the other oath. This oath is the oath that was taken by former Confederate officers or, helpers, whatever the proper term would be, so that they could hold an office in their state's government after the Civil War. But this is not the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. And it has a religious test, so help me God. So this can't satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution. All right? But this is the oath that they said they took. And then they said they took it using this style of name, like Jerry L. Carl. Well, that's not anybody's full legal name. And if you really wanted to, you could go look up the Real ID Act and search in it for full legal name, and you would find out that, well, you have to use your full legal name for legal matters with the United States. Well, they didn't do it. Right? None of these people are using their full legal name on their oath of office, which isn't the proper oath of office to start with, but they would say, well, we filed an oath of office. This is what we put in. Now, if you're going to accept that NCO as acceptable to you, well, then you get to live in the world that you live in, and these fuckers can tell you to go to Afghanistan, wherever else they want to take you to next. But none of these people are your government. They didn't take the proper oath of office. On top of that, when they got all done, they said, well, let's take another one. Hell, well, let's do another oath so we can get classified information. Well, that made them spies. Every one of these fucktards is a spy, and that's a hanging offense. It's in the court-martial manual. Right? So every person in here could be tried for court-martialed and hung for being a spy. But to do that, you have to have a general court-martial. Right? You can't do it in a U.S. District Court. Can't do it in the Supreme Court. You can only do it in a court-martial court. Well, that's what the military has. Right? And all these people always stand in front of the gold fringe flag. So let's talk about that real quick, right? Everybody should look at this. If you've never looked at it, doesn't matter what branch you're in. Army Regulation 840-10. You need to know this. This is like the signs of the times. Right? Where it says in here, get through all the yada, 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 get the first chapter. Unauthorized use of official flags, guidons, or streamers. So that would be the flag, right? There is no law that permits sale, loan, or donation of flags, guidons, or streamers to individuals or organizations not in military service, except as indicated by 1 and 2. Well, 1's educational, so schools can have them, and 2 is retired general officers. But that doesn't make any provision for your township supervisor to have one, or your school board to have one, or the county commissioners to have one, or, the governor to have one, or any of these people. The only way you can have one is if you are somehow part of the military. And if you're part of the military, well, then you're subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which means an enlisted man can charge you. Now, if we go to Chapter 2, and we go down here to national flag listed below. For the purpose of the flag of the United States, will be rayon, banner cloth, heavy nylon, trimmed on 3 sides with gold and yellow fringe. Right? And that's the flag that's used for indoor display and for ceremonies and parades. Right? So, now who can have it? Authorized for indoor display. The flag of the United States is authorized for indoor display for each. If you read these things, you'll soon understand, well, these are all some type of military office. Like right here, military courtroom. Well, then why are there 2 of them hanging in the Supreme Court? Right? Is the Supreme Court not the judicial branch of the government, but it's actually a military court? Well, yes, that's what's happening. And they can also fly in chapels. And this is the other thing. All the major denominations all have a gold fringe flag. And that's because they were all given a military commission by the Department of War in 1917. And they still have it. And so they're supposed to be acting as our cooperating agent. But for like the parishioners or members of that church to engage with other agencies of the government. But they're not doing it. And I'm tired of trying to talk about it. It's like, well, let me go talk to an NCO, see if I can get him to do something. So that's the idea, right? That every civilian court that people walk into has got a gold fringe flag. Well, brothers and sisters, you're in a military court. You need to say, I demand trial by court-martial. And so that's an Army flag. I demand trial by court-martial. I'm not putting up with no provost court or no fucking commission or no other bullshit. I want general court-martial. Right? Once you tell me you want a court-martial, they got to treat you different. So I don't know how these people, these esquires who sit in these courts, got these positions and exactly what the agreement is, but I have heard somebody tell me before that, like the prosecutor for your county, he also has some kind of military rank or description or something else. Well, that's what I'm talking about. They're under military jurisdiction. We're not under a constitutional government. It's been suspended, and it's just the way it is. Where was that at, real quick? Where? All right, so here's the Lieber Code, which was, this is the 24th of April, 1863. So before the proclamation, these, this is an order, basically, given to the government of the armies of the United States in the field. Well, did you know that U.S.Army stands for Army of the United States? It doesn't stand for United States Army. U.S.Army, according to the GPO manual, Government Printing Office Style Manual, says that's the Army of the United States. And so we've been under this ever since 1863. But it says a place, district, county occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect of consequences of occupation or conquest. So any place you see in a state, you see the flag planted, the United States flag, that's occupation. Right? Basically, the whole United States is, or all the several states are at war with the United States. I'll put it that way. Well, actually, all the states have been vacated, and these other entities that are corporate governments have taken their place, and they're trying to pretend to be the United States or the several states. So there is no Michigan anymore. Now it's called State of Michigan. But its proper name would just be Michigan. Right? That's how the federal government would recognize it, as Michigan. But the state, call themselves the State of Michigan. It's all in the wordplay. Look at martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation, except by special proclamation or order ordered by the commander-in-chief, or by special mention in a treaty of peace concluding the war. Well, that never happened after the Civil War. It just ended in an armistice, which is basically a ceasefire. And there's been no proclamation until somebody sends a copy to me to say, well, here it is. There is no proclamation. Ordered by the commander-in-chief to end martial law over the entire United States. There were proclamations written to end it in a particular state or whatever, but, it's not the same as what Lincoln wrote. He said the entire United States, and so it's the entire United States. Until that proclamation is written, well, the United States is under martial law, which is the federal government. It's not the state government. Right? So if you want to be protected by the federal government, you need to be seen in the United States, but they have us all in the United States of America. So now we look like we're enemies of the United States. But if we could ever cross back the Union lines, well, then, we would be seen in a different status. Yeah. Some more little details. You got to have all these little details to build a foundation. So that's really what I'm trying to do now, is just show these little things, that it's written. You can allow somebody to convince you that what it says isn't what it says, or you can say for yourself, well, it says what it says, and you're a liar. Because that's what Esquires do. They're going to lie to you. They're going to try to get you to agree with their fucking line of bullshit. And you need to be able to say, well, no, it says right here. Right? This is 1 Stat 23, Statute 1, Chapter 1, an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths, in which it says the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States. Well, that's what that document said it was. It said that was the Constitution of the United States. We just read it a minute ago. Shall be administered in the following form, to wit, I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Period. And you could go on to read this, and it'd tell you this is for the senators, representatives, and the state legislators, and so forth and so on, and all executive judicial officers, several states, who have been hereto chose or appointed, yada, 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 on and on and on. They all have to do this. And that if they don't do it, well, it's their fault. Right? And each officer shall incur the same penalties in case of failure as shall be imposed by law for failure taking their respective oath of office. Well, under English common law, since the time of Henry VIII, it's been an act of treason to not take a loyalty oath that you're required to take. Right? So nobody had to take that oath, but if you're going to claim the office, you had better have taken the oath, because you're not supposed to have done anything until you've taken the oath. They've all committed treason. Now, later, that was taken out and put into the United States Code for the states. I mean, it talks about the several states in 1 Stat 23, but then they put it in the U.S. Code under Title 4, United States Code, Section 101, where it says every member of a state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take the oath in the following form, to wit, which is the exact same oath, and they haven't done it. In fact, what we're looking at here is something I'm working on to send to as a sworn statement that I had started back in March, right, with the intention of sending this to the Adjutant General for the state of Michigan. But something happened. I got sidetracked, didn't get it done. I'm coming back to it. I'm just saying, that's what I'm doing with this, right? That I'm saying that the person pretending to be the governor of Michigan is not the governor of Michigan, right? Gretchen Esther Whitmer, born on whatever day, currently residing at, well, that's the address of the governor's house, is impersonating the elected governor of Michigan. And she is fraudulently appointed to the military office, Commander-in-Chief, Michigan National Guard, in violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 83. That's the same one Biden violated, by the way. Fraudulent enlistment, appointment, or separation. Right? Gretchen Esther Whitmer omitted executing the oath of office required of all state executive and judicial officers by federal law, 4 U.S.C. 101. Oath by members of legislatures and officers, and she counterfeited the oath of office required by Article 11 of the Constitution of Michigan, 1963, as proof of claim on Wednesday, August 21st, Basically, I sent a FOIA to get her oaths of office. And this is why I stopped doing it. I started this get too freaking oddly written. I'm going to have to go back and do it again. But at this point, I was just putting facts on paper. Right? The style of the oath filed of this filed oath of office differs from the style of the Constitution of Michigan, 1963. I'll show you that in just a second. Right? She pretended to put the oath in to satisfy the Constitution of Michigan, and that would be fine if she did. But it doesn't relieve her of doing what the federal government said, because she needs to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution first. The federal Constitution trumps the state's Constitution. Not included a copy of the executed oath of office. Federal law satisfy 6th article of the Constitution. Yeah. So anyways, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to send something like this. Right? But I'm just trying to show this is a sworn statement for our Army. You would fill out something like this with whatever your complaint is and take it to your commander. And when you get to the last page, they got this affidavit part. And you're going to put in who you are. And I say put in your social security number, because really that's your authenticator to which Robert Allen Werlewski we talking about. Well, this one right here, the one with this social security number. Right? And that you do this part here. And right here is where your commander comes in. They're going to be the person administering the oath. Well, if you put that into your commander and it gets logged in the book, it's just become official business of the military. And I'm saying that's what we need to do with these people. Right? So here's the oath that she took. I mean, sent a freedom request to the Secretary of State saying, please send me the... Well, let's just go look. How did I do it? In case you want to do this yourself. It's not that big a deal. Right? Who did I send it to? MDOS FOIA, Michigan Department of State FOIA. Written request for an image of the oaths of office subscribed by Gretchen Whitmer for the office of governor of the state of Michigan and its commander-in-chief. That's what I asked for. Right? I got an answer. Now, see, this says the Michigan Department of State is in receipt of your request. Well, then why does it say State of Michigan Department of State? Why is State of Michigan Department of State answering me for Michigan Department of State? Right? Because they're not the same thing. Anyways, this is what they gave me, and this is the oath. And if you were to go look at the state's oath, you would see that the C on Constitution is lowercase, and so is the S. And so this should read, I do solemnly swear that I support the Constitution of the United States and the lowercase Constitution of the state, which is the same thing, right? That would mean it's both the Constitution of the United States and it's the Constitution of the state. But the way it's written now, it's like there's two different formal constitutions. I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office of governor. Well, that isn't the way it's written. It just should be lowercase Constitution of the state, which is the Constitution of the United States. And then she didn't use her full legal name. Again, it's in the Real ID Act. It says you got to use your full legal name for things to do with the official business with the federal government. So that can't work. And then she did it before a notary, which it doesn't say it on here, but a notary cannot administer an oath to the governor. So the whole thing is messed up, right? Just hokey as shit from the beginning. Well, I'm going to try it by going to the adjutant general of the state, right? But if you were in the military, you could just go to your commander and do the same thing. If you happen to be from Michigan and you agree with what I'm saying, well, you could do the same thing. Or you could do the same thing about any of these people that claim to be your representative, right? Because none of these people are using their full legal name. If this is the oath they took, it's not the oath that satisfies 6th article, right? So you just write it up, put in your sworn statement, state the facts, swear to them. That's what it said in the book, sir. I read it out of the book. Turn it in and see what the officers do with it. So maybe that'll have some effect. Okay, so I'm about done with this, right? But I do want to show a few things out of the Manual for Court-Martials. This happens to be the 2016 edition. Maybe a couple things out of the UCMJ just to, right? Because enlisted, we don't need to understand all of this. We only need to understand the part that we need to do. All right, that's what we got to get down. It's a go or no go. Either we do it right or we do it wrong. If we do it right, well, then the paper will get submitted. We don't do it right, it's not going to happen. But once we do our part right, well, then the system can work. And that's what the book is how the system will work. But before you can worry about all the other stuff that can happen, you need to do your part. And that's what that's what I'm trying to figure out what it is. And as soon as I do, I'll tell everybody what it is and we can start doing it. Let's see what it says in the preamble. The sources of military jurisdiction include the Constitution and international law. International law includes the law of war. We're under the law of war right now. We're not under the law of peace. All right? We're always involved in some kind of military conflict. Exercise of military jurisdiction is exercised by a government and exercise of that branch of the municipal law that regulates its military establishment. The military establishment of Michigan says if you're between 17 and a half and 60, you're a member of the state's militia. Well, then you're subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. All right, a government temporarily governing the civilian population within its territory or a portion of its territory through its military forces as necessary may require. Well, that's called martial law. A belligerent occupying enemy territory. That's a military government. And a government with respect to the offenses against the law of war. Right? A government with respect to offenses against the law of war. Well, that's what we're talking about. I want to find the government that handles offenses against the law of war and say that's what Whitmer did, that's what Biden did, that's what John Roberts, the Esquire, did. That's what the Esquire is doing in the court that's taking your family's house in a fucking foreclosure, and the fucking other Esquire sitting there acting like a judge. It's all bullshit. These people don't follow the laws. They're not following any law that's been written for your state or for the federal government. They just pretend to. They change the forms. They don't sign shit. They use, they hide their identity. It goes on and on and on. Agencies. The agencies through which military jurisdiction is exercised. Well, that's be called a court-martial, right? For trial of offenses against the military law. Well, that's, again, government with respect to offenses against the military law is the government a court-martial. Well, that's the one I want. And in the case of a general court-martial, of persons who, by law of war, are subject to trial by military tribunals. Right? Military commissions and provost courts. Who knew that they had provost courts? But we do. Let's go see what a provost court can do. Definition of provost court. Which one did I use? This one here, I think. A military court for trying soldiers or civilians charged with minor offenses in occupied territory. There you are. The court you're going to with the gold fringed flag with that judge sitting there. This is the civilian world now. Well, that's a provost court. All right, it can try civilians. It's occupied territory. Well, there's the United States flag in Michigan. That means the United States is occupying that territory. And there's a guy sitting there acting like he's the judge. Well, then he is under military jurisdiction. And he is not following the Constitution or the laws of the state. So, he's in dishonor. And before I forgot, I want to show, U.S. Army, right? Army of the United States. That's what that stands for. And then U.S.Army is also USA with no dots. But with dots, U.S.A. That's the United States of America. Now, if you go look at a passport, it will say United States of America at the top, which is U.S.A. But the people issuing it are USA, which is actually the U.S. Army, which is the Army of the United States, which I should be recognized by, but there's fucking errors in my records and every other veteran's records, and there will be in yours too if you're in the military now. That make sure them errors are in before you leave, right? Where you won't be recognized. So for all that shit to be fixed, it's got to be done from the inside. It's going to have to be done by court-martial. Can't do it out here in this, in the world. The world is run by the devil. Okay, so nature and purpose of military law. Military law consists of the statutes governing the military establishment and regulations issued thereunder. So I guess that'd be like Title 10 would be the statute. Right, that's where the UCMJ comes from. And then under that, they write a bunch of Army regulations. The constitutional powers of the president. Well, that's good to know. Except we don't have one because the president didn't take proper oath of office. So we're missing that part. Right? And regulations issued thereunder. And the inherent authority of military commanders. Well, these other things could be missing, but they're still military commanders. All right, the inherent authority of a military commander. Military law includes jurisdiction exercised by court-martials and the jurisdiction exercised by commanders with respect to non-judicial punishment. The purpose of military law is to promote justice, to assist in maintaining good order and discipline in the armed forces, to promote efficiency and effectiveness in the military establishment, and thereby to strengthen the national security of the United States. So, if your family was being thrown out of their house, right? I'm not talking about your mom and dad or your cousin, or right? While you're over fighting in Afghanistan, well, that's affecting the morale of the frickin' government of the military. So, yes, they should do something about that. Someday I could just do hours and hours and hours on videos on mortgages and so forth. The bank, but this is what you really need to know. The bank never signed a loan with you, right? You and the bank never signed the same document, so there is no contract. It doesn't really matter what else anybody ever says. You didn't sign a piece of paper with your signature and the bank's signature, then there is no bilateral contract. And everything else is fucking smoke and mirrors and coercion. Well, that's what they're doing to your family while you're over there fighting Afghanistan or wherever the hell they're going to send you next. And then when you become a veteran, they're going to screw you some more, and you can join the rest of us in the being screwed class. Or maybe you can get it, wedge the door open so we can all get through. Right? So, if you're an NCO, if you're an enlisted man or woman, you need to read this. You need to read these first 3 chapters in this book. Right? Or first 3 parts. The first part was general. This one is rules of court-martial. Right? In which, let's just get down to some definitions here. Right? When they say article, they mean the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's good to know. A capital offense means one that you can be killed for. Well, that's good to know. The code refers to the Code of Military Justice, Uniform Code of Military Justice. Okay. So you see article or code, we're talking about Uniform Code of Military Justice. What's a commander? It means a commissioned officer in command of an officer in charge or an officer in charge, except in Part 4, unless the context indicates otherwise. Okay, well, that didn't tell me enough. Who's the convening authority? Includes a commissioned officer in command. Oh, there you go. For a time being, and successors in command. See, we need the convening authority. Fuck JAG. Screw going to the CID or something. You want to take your bitch right to the convening authority. You have open door policy. You want to take your shit to the man that can do something about it. Because he can order a court-martial. Right? Military judge requested for trial. Military judge alone approved. These are the different styles. You got court-martial includes, depending on the context, a military judge and members of a general or special court-martial. And also a summary court-martial. See, a summary court-martial is just an officer. You don't have to have a military judge. In a summary court-martial, the officer can also be the accuser. Right? So, NCO, you need to go point this stuff out to your command. A military judge means presiding officer of a general or special court-martial, as detailed in Article 26. So in the UCMJ, Article 26, it defines who a military judge is. But it also says, except as expressly provided in the context of a summary court-martial, military judge includes a summary court-martial officer, or in context of a special court-martial without military judge, the president. See, the president can have his own special court-martial all by himself. And these other ones, there have to be, groups of people and so forth. But we don't have a president. Now, it isn't just Biden that didn't do this, right? They have no president. I've gone back and listened to their spiel for last 75, 80 years or whatever. I got tired of looking, so I guess it's going to keep going. But none of them have done it right. No person standing out there at the podium saying he's taking the oath of office under the second article is taking the oath of office under the second article. It didn't just start happening. It's been happening. But it doesn't mean we can't stop it now that we know that it's happening. The difference is back in the day, people didn't have access to all this information. All right, well, now we're just information heavy. We got more information than we know what to do with. And that's why I don't want to bog down with all that. You could just see how much you could read about this. But that's not going to get anything done, right? We just need to go to the shall. Shall is used in an imperative sense. So when it says that the person shall take an oath before he does something and he didn't do it, well, he violated the fucking law. And you become the accuser. Yeah, okay. There's just a few more things I wanted to really make sure that I pointed out. Rules of court, investigation of judges, because a military judge will be an attorney, right? And because he is an attorney and they're, Esquires, you have to watch them every step of the way, right? Because they're children of the devil. They're born to lie. Complaints concerning a trial judge or appellate military judge will be forwarded to the judge advocate. Right? So if you, let's say you don't want to take that shot, and they said they're going to give you non-judicial punishment, you say, no, I demand trial by court-martial. Well, now somebody has to swear to their complaint. And they would have to swear to their complaint in their full legal name. And the judge would have to use his full legal name. And see, now we just got into this whole different level of what's required to get a conviction. Right? Don't take non-judicial punishment. No, just demand trial by court-martial. And then if they don't put their names down right, start bitching. Right? It's a big deal. This is really, really a big deal, right? That if they do not use the name that's on the oath that they took to take an oath, then they're not representing themselves in their official capacity. Right? It's almost like acting like a spy. Right? The jurisdiction of court-martial is entirely penal or disciplinary, which means there is no civil cases between two individuals, right? Now, this is between the government and, the offender. The code applies in all places. That's outstanding to know. Court-martial always has jurisdiction to determine whether it has jurisdiction. See, this is the thing. You just go ask and let the court decide if they have jurisdiction. And by the court-martial, I mean, you let that officer decide. But you make them take your frickin' sworn statement and then decide. Right? Because that's what makes it official is when you file a sworn statement, it gets put in the book. It's just become, part of the history of the military. Court-martials have exclusive jurisdiction to purely military offenses. An act or omission which violates both the code and local criminal law, foreign or domestic, may be tried by a court-martial. Isn't that something? Right? An act or omission which violates both the code and local criminal law, foreign or domestic, may be tried by a court-martial. Right? So if somebody's defrauding the United States, which is what's happening in any federal court, where these 600 and so patriots are that are being tried, right? That there's a conspiracy between the Esquires that are acting as the defense attorney and the prosecutor and the Esquire that's acting as a judge. None of them are using their full legal name. None of them have taken an oath to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution. So that's not a judge of the United States, and that's not a prosecutor, an executive officer of the United States. Right? It's conspiracy to defraud the United States. They did not execute the oath required by the 6th article. Okay, where an act or omission is subject to trial by court-martial and by one or more civil tribunals, foreign or domestic, the determination which nation, state, agency, exercise jurisdiction matter for the nation, states, or agencies concerned. In other words, it's up to the freaking court to decide if it has jurisdiction, but it can't do that unless you give it a chance to make a decision. And that's what we need to do. We as the enlisted corps. I'm talking mainly NCOs, but private, you can do it too, brother. Don't worry, just go do it. All right, go watch A Few Good Men and see what happens when, private says, well, I'm not going to just do that because you said so. I'm not saying I did something wrong, right, to get a lighter sentence. And they have a court-martial and ends up the general gets his ass in trouble. So, they bring it on themselves. So be it. So, reciprocal jurisdiction. A commander of a unified or special combat command may convene court-martial over members of any of the armed forces. Well, any of the armed forces would mean, like you go to Title 10, United States Code, Section 246, it says that the militia of the United States includes all able-bodied men between the age of 17 and a half and 45. And in the state, it says between 17 and a half and 60. Right? They're all members of the armed forces. If you went down and you registered with selective service, you're in the armed forces. Right? You're under the jurisdiction of an entity that could convene a court-martial. It's just, for the longest time, I say, well, who would that be here in Michigan? I said, well, duh, of course, it would be the adjutant general. So he's the next one to get a piece of paper from me. So much of the authority vested in president under some other section, such a commanding officer may convene general court-martial for trial of members of any of the armed forces assigned or attached to a combat command or joint command. A commander who is empowered to convene a court-martial under Section E2A or... So if there's any officers watching this video that, could tell me exactly who are we speaking of exactly. Right? It'd make my life a hell of a lot easier. Right? You can just put it in the comments. Who are we talking about? What commanders? I say that my company commander is a commander. I should just be able to give it to him, and it'll go up the line as high as it needs to until it can be dealt with. But that for me, I would just take it to my company commander. A member of one or more armed forces may be tried by a court-martial convened by a member of another armed force. There you go. Cases under the law of war, general court-martials may try any person who by laws of war is subject to trial by military tribunal for any crime or offense against the law of war or the law of a territory occupied as an incident of war or belligerency, whether the local civil authority is superseded in whole or part by military authority of an occupying power. I kind of think that's what's happening now, because we have people that act like they're the township board or the county board or whatever you want to talk about, but they never put a seal on anything. It's like, their seal's been taken from them. They don't have the authority to actually do anything completely. And they all have gold fringe flags. Right? Your school board sits behind or in front of a gold fringe flag. They are susceptible to trial by court-martial. And they didn't take the proper oath of office. The law of occupied territory. Okay. I'll be about done here. I know the military people don't have much time to be listening to all this stuff. So let's get to the thing I wanted to show here, which is report of an offense. Who may report? Any person, any A-N-Y person, may report an offense subject to trial by court-martial. Any person. Well, to whom reports convene for disposition. Conveyed for disposition. Ordinarily, any military authority who receives a report of an offense shall forward as soon as practicable to the report and any accompanying information to the immediate commander of the subject. Competent authorities superior to the commander may direct otherwise. So we just need to get it into the stream as the enlisted and let the officers do what they do. Right? But we need to initiate it. Any military authority may receive a report of an offense. Typically, such reports are made to law enforcement or investigative personnel or to appropriate person in the chain of command. There you are. A report may be made by any means. No particular format is required. When a person who is not a law enforcement official receives a report of an offense, the person should forward the report to the immediate commander of the suspect unless that person believes it would be more appropriate to notify law enforcement or investigative authorities. Let your commander decide what to do with it. If the subject is unidentified, the military authority who receives the report should refer to a law enforcement or investigative agency. Well, we can show them who we're talking about. You can just take them. All right, just go to the congressional record for January 28, 2021, and look for the section for the House and print it out and take this in. Now, you see, if you could take it in on the computer, this would be foolproof evidence because it has this little blue eagle up here, right? And as long as it's online, it's considered to be what's in the GPO. But once you print it out, well, now they can't say it is because it could change, right? So you should be able to go to like a library and say, hey, print this out, put your stamp on it to prove that it came out of the public record. But you can't get that done either, right? This is another thing they blocked. So we got to just forget all that and go with what we got, right? So print it out. It's 20 pages long for that whole day, but we're just talking about this first part. Take this in and say these people didn't take the proper oath of office, right? So you need that. You need 4 USC 101, right? Which if you Google 4 USC 101 or search on it, you'll find a link to the government printing office website. And you can print out a PDF and it'll come on this one sheet here. And right here it talks about the oath and then by whom administered. Such oath may be administered by any person who by law of the state is authorized to administer the oath of office. And the person so administering such oath shall cause a record or certificate thereof to be made in the same manner as by law of the state he is directed to record or certify the oath of office. So if somebody can't give you a copy to say here's a certified copy that the guy took the oath, then they didn't take the oath. Apprehension, right, which is equivalent to arrest. Well, if we can get this far, if we can get to 302, where they apprehend somebody, we have done everything that we can do. Right? We're going to basically give a commander probable cause to have somebody arrested. That would be the reason for doing it. Okay, just a couple more pages of things to look at that they're kind of important. So in this discussion, it talks about these several agencies have broad powers to apprehend persons, violation of federal laws, including the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Right? It goes on to say who they are. You got Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Marshals, so forth and so on. In 1984, there was a memorandum of understanding written between the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense, right, about investigations and prosecutions of crimes. And so there's a lot of, where they cross the lines with each other. But what that means is that the military has much broader powers than they thought they did or that they use. And the only reason they're not using them is we're not telling them, well, you have these powers. It says so right here, sir. Show your officer the book and let him do something with it. Who may apprehend? The following officials may apprehend any person subject to trial by court-martial. Right now, who gets to decide if it's a court-martial? Well, the court-martial does. So if they decide they got jurisdiction, then they can have any of these people here arrest your ass. All right, da-da-da-da-da. A commissioned warrant, petty, or non-commissioned officer can arrest you. Non-commissioned petty officers not otherwise performing law enforcement duties should not apprehend a commissioned officer unless directed to do so by a commissioned officer or in order to prevent disgrace to the service or the escape of one who has committed a serious offense. So go tackle Nancy Pelosi and don't let her up. Grounds for apprehension. So what do we need to show to get somebody apprehended? A person subject to the code of trial thereunder may be apprehended for any offense triable by court-martial upon probable cause to apprehend. Probable cause to apprehend exists when there are reasonable grounds to believe that the offense has been or is being committed, and the person is to be apprehended, committed, or is committing them. Which goes back to, well, this is what they said they did, right? But this doesn't satisfy this, so they didn't do it. All right, this is a statute at large. This is a law of the United States. And, if you offend this, then you're offending the United States and you can be arrested. Or what's apprehended? Is that what we're using now? You can be apprehended. Reasonable ground means that there must be the kind of reliable information that a reasonable, prudent person would rely on, which makes it more likely than not that something is true. Jeepers. That's got to be this. How could this not say, well, sir, here's the name they use, which that's not their full legal name, sir. Right? Here's a person using the middle initial. Here's a person putting Buddy in the middle of his name. This isn't people's name, sir. There is no Henry C. Hank Johnson Jr. Right? Show me that on somebody's birth record. It doesn't exist. Right? You can have all these people arrested. You could have Joe Biden arrested. On and on and on. Have your governor arrested. Because none of those people are representing the republic. They're all representing the democracy. And the democracy is not guaranteed by the Constitution. A Republican form of government is. And a Republican form of government is a government that has elected or appointed officers enforcing written law. So if that has to be a freaking military officer, I'm okay with it. And that's the other thing about this. A military officer is not an executive officer of the United States. When they created the DOD, they took, before that, a military officer would have been an executive officer of the United States. Instead, they made them military officers. And now only like the Secretary of the Department of Defense, secretaries of all the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, so forth, or not Marines, but Navy, they are all executive officers of the United States, or should be, but they haven't taken the proper oath of office either. Or if they did, they have to show it. It has to be somewhere, right? So you're not happy, or you're not satisfied if they were to say, well, here's the oath they took, and they brought you this oath right here. Right? I, A, B, do solemnly swear or affirm that I am support to defend the Constitution, which all sounds good. This is actually the oath that the military takes, although it's not exactly the same, because where it says A, B, they put in not only their name, they put in their social security number, and they put in the branch. But it doesn't say they're taking the oath of 5 U.S.C. 3331. So you can see it just goes on and on. That if we're going to allow this to happen, we're going to have to deal with the democracy and all the shit that goes with it. And it's demonic as can be, and it has every intention of destroying humanity. And, I'm telling you, enlisted, it's up to us. All right, you're the NCO, you are the backbone of the U.S. military. So only the enlisted can save the republic from the democracy. We've got to go file some charges by the book. Your county will thank you. Your country will thank you. So if you're in the military and you're interested in doing it, please don't hesitate to contact me. All right, email me at courtofrecord@aol.com. You call me 616-712-6179, but you're still going to have to email me at some point. And we'll write something up. And if you got the balls to take it in to your commander, well, then I'll salute the flag. And we'll see what happens. Okay, very good. You all have a great day, and I hope you found it useful. I'll talk to you later.